The judge smirked, shaking his head as he flipped through the documents. The courtroom was silent, waiting for him to speak. Then, with a chuckle, he looked up. Elon Musk, the genius billionaire who thinks he's above the law, he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. The prosecution's lawyer grinned, confident that today's case would be nothing more than a public humiliation. For Musk, the gallery was packed. Reporters scribbled notes, cameras flashed, and spectators whispered. Everyone believed they already knew how this would end. Musk, however, didn't react. He sat back, hands folded, his expression unreadable. The judge's amusement grew. "I hope you're ready, Mr. Musk. This isn't one of your Twitter debates. This is a courtroom." A chuckle spread through the room, but Musk remained still, his eyes locked on the judge. Then he finally spoke, one sentence that made the entire courtroom freeze. The laughter stopped. The prosecutor's smirk vanished. Even the judge's expression shifted. No one expected what happened next. The lead prosecutor adjusted his tie, stepping confidently toward the jury. His voice was smooth, practiced, and dripping with certainty. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, gesturing toward Musk, "we are here today because a billionaire believes he is above the law." He turned sharply, locking eyes with the judge. "The evidence is overwhelming. Mr. Musk's company has knowingly violated regulations, ignored legal protocols, and acted with blatant disregard for the rules that govern everyone else." The judge nodded, a smirk playing on his lips. He leaned forward slightly. "Mr. Musk, I assume you understand the severity of these accusations." Musk simply tilted his head, listening. He hadn't spoken, yet not a word. The prosecutor continued, flipping through his documents with dramatic flair. "Your Honor, this is not just a case of corporate misbehavior. This is textbook defiance. Mr. Musk has made a career out of pushing boundaries, but today he's met a boundary that will not bend the law." A murmur spread through the courtroom. The judge chuckled. "Mr. Musk, are you planning to defend yourself, or do we need to explain legal terminology to you first?" Laughter rippled through the room. Musk remained still, unfazed. The prosecutor took the opportunity to pile on. "Your Honor, the defendant seems amused. Perhaps he thinks this is another press conference where he can tweet his way out of trouble. But today we deal in facts, not Twitter polls." The judge leaned back, his grin widening. "I must admit, I'm curious, Mr. Musk. Do you actually have a defense, or are we just here to watch you work on your next meme?" Another round of chuckles. The jury exchanged glances. Sensing an easy case, the prosecutor turned back to the judge. "Your Honor, we request that the court recognize the overwhelming evidence against the defendant and proceed with swift action." The judge nodded, tapping his gavel lightly. "Mr. Musk, I suggest you say something now before I start wondering if you even belong in this courtroom." For the first time, Musk shifted in his seat. He took a slow breath, adjusted his jacket, and finally stood up. His next words would change everything. Musk exhaled slowly, stepping forward with the same ease he carried into boardrooms and launch sites. He adjusted his jacket, looked directly at the judge, and smirked. "Your Honor," he began, his voice steady, but carrying a hint of amusement, "I'd like to thank the prosecution for their very dramatic interpretation of reality." A ripple of murmurs spread through the courtroom. The judge narrowed his eyes, the amusement in his expression fading just slightly. Musk continued, pacing slowly. "We keep hearing about rules, about laws, about how I've somehow disrespected the system. But the problem with that argument is simple. It assumes the system actually makes sense in the first place." The prosecutor scoffed. "Is that your defense, Mr. Musk, that the law doesn't make sense?" Musk turned, locking eyes with him. "No, my defense is that you don't understand the law you're trying to enforce." Silence. The courtroom, which had moments ago been laughing at Musk, was now listening. The judge leaned forward, intrigued despite himself. Musk pulled a document from the table, flipping through the pages casually. "This entire case relies on the idea that my company violated regulations. But let's take a closer look at those regulations, shall we?" He held up the legal text. "This law, written years ago, was designed for an industry that doesn't even exist in its original form anymore. The language is outdated. The framework is inefficient. And worst of all," Musk smirked again, turning a page, "it contradicts itself." The prosecutor shifted, suddenly less confident. "That's nonsense." Musk raised a hand. "Is it? Let's break this down logically. If I were to follow every clause written here, my company would actually be in violation of another federal mandate." He flipped the page dramatically. "So tell me, Your Honor, should I follow this law, or the one that directly opposes it?" The judge's smirk had completely vanished. He reached for his glasses and skimmed the text Musk was referring to, his lips pressed together. Musk didn't stop. "You see, laws like physics are based on principles, and principles should never contradict themselves. But this case, it's built entirely on contradictions." The jury exchanged glances. The energy in the room had shifted. Musk turned to the prosecutor. "You assumed I wouldn't understand legal jargon, but I don't need legal jargon to win this case. I just need logic." The judge leaned back, tapping his fingers against the bench. He wasn't laughing anymore. Musk leaned forward, tapping the thick legal document on the table. His movements were unhurried, deliberate. He wasn't just defending himself anymore. He was leading the discussion, Your Honor, he said, sliding a highlighted page toward the judge. I want to direct your attention to Section 42.3 of the very law the prosecution is relying on. The judge adjusted his glasses and scanned the text. The opposing lawyer, sensing something was off, quickly flipped through his own documents. Musk waited, letting the silence build. Then he spoke. This law, he said, which they claim gives them authority over my company, was written before the internet even existed. A hushed murmur swept through the courtroom. The judge's eyebrows lifted slightly. The prosecutor opened his mouth to counter, but nothing came out. Musk didn't pause. Now let's break this down. Logically, how do you regulate something using rules that predate its very existence? It's like trying to enforce horse-drawn carriage laws on electric vehicles. It doesn't work. The prosecutor cleared his throat, trying to regain control. Mr. Musk, that's a weak comparison. The principles of the law still apply. Musk cut in smoothly, his voice unwavering. Do they? Because Section 43.1 of the same law directly contradicts the claim your case is built on. He flipped another page. Pointing, it states that if a TE technology falls outside the scope of existing regulation, new standards must be drafted before legal action can be taken. The courtroom froze. The judge's eyes moved quickly over the document, his expression shifting. The prosecutor paled. He hadn't seen that clause. Musk folded his arms. So tell me, Your Honor, are we really here to discuss legal violations? Or are we watching an attempt to punish innovation using outdated rules? The prosecutor scrambled. That's. Musk smiled, but it wasn't one of amusement. It was the smile of a man who had just flipped the entire case on its head. The judge set the document down slowly. He was no longer just listening, he was reevaluating everything. The judge exhaled, slowly rubbing his temple. He had entered this courtroom fully in control, certain that Musk was just another wealthy businessman trying to twist the law in his favor. But now the balance had shifted. Musk stood tall, his voice calm, controlled. He wasn't arguing, he was teaching. Your Honor, he said, flipping to another marked page. This isn't just about one law, it's about legal consistency. If you enforce one regulation, but ignore another that contradicts it, you're not applying justice, you're just picking winners. The prosecutor tensed. Objection, Your Honor. He's manipulating technicality. These two. Musk turned to him with a slight tilt of his head. You mean the same technicalities? Your case depends on. Funny how that works, isn't it? The courtroom stilled. The judge no longer leaning back in amusement was leaning forward. He wasn't laughing anymore. Musk continued unfazed. Let's talk about precedent in Smiths and VTech Corp. The ruling was clear. No company can be punished for operating in a legal gray area when existing laws don't cover their innovation. That case was decided in this very court. The judge blinked. He remembered that case, and worse, so did the prosecution. Musk delivered the final blow. So, Your Honor, are we here to apply justice or to punish progress because it doesn't fit inside old rules? Silence for the first time. The judge wasn't sure who held the power in this room anymore. The prosecutor clenched his jaw, flipping through his notes frantically. Musk had torn through every argument like a wrecking ball, and the judge, who had started this case with a smirk, was now listening intently. This was slipping away with one last desperate move. The lawyer grabbed a stack of papers and strode toward the bench. Your Honor, he announced, his voice loud, forced, we have new evidence. This document proves that Mr. Musk knowingly disregarded regulations. It's all here in black and white. Musk didn't even flinch. He folded his arms, watching the lawyer dig his own grave. The judge raised an eyebrow, flipping through the pages. Mr. Musk, do you have anything to say about this? Musk took a slow step forward. Of course, Your Honor. He gestured toward the document. That's fascinating, considering this report was written after the lawsuit was filed. A ripple of murmurs spread through the courtroom. The prosecutor froze. Musk continued, his voice even unbothered. If this document was so critical to their case, why did it only appear now? It's not evidence. It's a last-minute attempt to patch the holes in an argument that's already sinking. The judge glanced at the prosecutor, waiting for an explanation. The lawyer had none. Musk delivered the final blow. Desperation isn't a legal strategy, counselor. It's just desperation. The lawyer's face read, but he had nothing left. For the first time, Musk wasn't just defending himself, he was winning. The courtroom fell silent. The judge, who had once laughed at Musk's defense, now sat deep in thought, his fingers tapping lightly against the bench. Every eye in the room was fixed on him, waiting for his final ruling. The prosecutor shifted uncomfortably, his confidence long gone. Musk, on the other hand, stood calm, hands resting on the table, as if he had already predicted this outcome. The judge exhaled, rubbing his temple before speaking. Mr. Musk, I must admit I underestimated you. His voice carried a mix of disbelief and respect. This court entered today with the belief that your actions were reckless, even illegal. But after reviewing the arguments presented, I see that's not the case. A few gasps coded through the room. The prosecutor stiffened. The judge continued, you have not only dismantled the accusations against you, but you have also exposed flaws in the way this case was built. The evidence presented by the prosecution has been inconsistent, at best misleading, at worst. He shot a glance at the opposing counsel, who looked visibly defeated. Musk remained silent, allowing the moment to sink in. The judge took one final look at the room before delivering his verdict. The court finds no grounds to proceed with this case. Further, Mr. Musk, you are free to go. The opposing lawyer's face drained of color. He opened his mouth to object, but no words came out. Musk simply smirked. He had already known how this would end. The courtroom emptied, but the echoes of what had just happened would last far beyond that day. Outside, reporters swarmed, cameras flashing, microphones raised. Mr. Musk, how does it feel to win? One journalist called out. Musk slipped on his sunglasses, a small smirk tugging at his lips. Feels like logic did its job. His words spread like wildfire, headlines calling him a legal genius, a master of the courtroom, and even the man who outwitted the legal system. The case wasn't just a victory for Musk, it was a wake-up call. Legal experts debated how his argument had exposed flaws in the system. Corporate lawyers, once confident in their methods, began re-examining their cases, wondering if they too would be outmaneuvered the way Musk had done so effortlessly. The judge, who had once laughed at him, now spoke about Musk with respect. He didn't just defend himself, he forced us to rethink everything he admitted in an interview. But Musk, he had already moved on. For him, it was just another Tuesday, another day, another challenge, another system disrupted. The courtroom room had emptied, but the impact of what had just happened lingered in the air. The judge sat back in his chair, fingers lightly tapping against the armrest. He had started the day believing he was the most knowledgeable person in the room, yet by the end it was clear that intelligence wasn't limited to those with a law degree. Elon Musk had done more than just win a case. He had forced the legal system to face its own flaws. The judge, once dismissive, had learned that true understanding could come from the most unexpected places. Musk had taken principles from engineering, innovation, and business and applied them to law, proving that complex problems required new ways of thinking. The real question remained how many other cases had been decided unfairly simply because those challenging the system lacked the power or the voice to expose its weaknesses. The verdict may have been delivered, but the conversation Musk started was far from over. Laws, just like technology, needed to evolve, and Muse had shown that when faced with an outdated system, the right mind could push it toward change, one argument at a time. This case wasn't just about one courtroom battle, it was about challenging outdated systems that go unquestioned. If Elon Musk could expose flaws in the legal process, how many other rules do we accept without thinking? How often do we let outdated laws dictate progress? The real question isn't whether Musk won, is how many times people lose because they don't have the power to fight back. What do you think? Should laws evolve, just like technology, or should tradition always win? Let us know your thoughts. The conversation is just getting started.